You can start recording this. Yes.
Okay, I think it has started recording. So thank you everyone for joining our session. As I said just a while ago, this is our fourth session. So we've been running 3 sessions so far. And the intent for these sessions are quite straightforward. It's basically to help students understand what they should be working towards if they're interested in pursuing a career um, in an MBA. So our organization, One Click Prep, basically has been dealing with students preparing for the GMAT for a long time. Both Shujai and myself, we have more than a combined of 30 years of experience assisting students all across the world to get admission into quite a few select schools based on their rankings. So if you wanted to go onto our website, you'll see quite a bit about what kind of work we do. You'll also be able to view recordings and previous videos. So I think please jump onto our website, have a look. All of these sessions are going to be free. So we do not intend to be charging people to come and attend our session. It's about spreading the word and making them aware of the kind of work we do. We are significantly different from most admissions consulting firms in the sense that we've worked, we've had an MBA, so we've gone through the journey of preparing for an MBA ourselves, sat through the MBA, and after an MBA worked in various fields, starting from consulting to within a corporate. You'll see in most of our sessions that we've presented so far, there are discussions around what the difference is between a consulting role, an investment banking role, a private equity role, or a corporate role, and how you could move within the various kinds of organizations. So please visit our website to get some more information. And today, in our fourth session, we have one of our current students, Shubro, who is going to attend a really prestigious university. So we thought it would be good for us to get Shubro to come and present his journey and his decision making. So that'll help you guys as you start preparing and working through this. So firstly, thank you, Shubro, so much for joining us and be willing to participate in this session, sharing your life stories and perspectives with prospective students. I think they'll all truly appreciate your insights coming straight from the horse's mouth rather than us. This is essentially a session that we plan to run as an informal chat. So I'll be asking Shubro questions, and Shubro, you can respond to them. Obviously, there'll be things that I'll be adding on or assisting you guys understand the context of it, given that I've done what Shubro is planning to do now 10 years back. And I've also worked with quite a few students in this period. So this is entirely an open forum. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to post them in the chat window or unmute yourself and stop us at any point you want further clarification or information. So with that, we'll get started. I know we're 10 minutes in and we've got another 45 minutes to go. So without further ado, Shubro, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself, your background, what have you done so far, maybe a little bit about your childhood and your family, just to set the scene in.
Yeah. Right. Firstly, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to talk to all the prospective students and share my experience. I'll start. See, I come from an Air Force background. My father was with the Indian Air Force. So I was born in Secunderabad. I traveled around the country, Agra, Chandigarh, and finally Calcutta. So in Calcutta, I did my engineering from IAST Shibpur. I'm an electrical engineer. And from there, I got into, I gave CAT. I had a 99.38 percentile. I got into MDI Gurgaon for their 2-year MBA. A year later, I got a summer internship with Agrotech Foods, who are a subsidiary of Conagra Brands in India. So post that, I received a pre-placement offer from them. And after MBA, I joined them as a management trainee and then area sales manager, handling sales and distribution. So I've worked for nearly 4 companies across, FMCG, OTC. Right now I'm in Apple. So, I've handled teams, bigger budgets. Right now I'm handling the P&L for Coats India for Northern India, based out of Delhi. So I'm handling a team of around 35 people, a budget of around $20 million. So, yeah, and my first interaction for preparing GMAT was Shujaida. So I met him in Calcutta, started working with him, and I have a GMAT of 720, and 3 colleges have got admits. So yeah, so it has been a fruitful journey with Sujaida and with yourself. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much, Shubhra. That is really a good background. So essentially what I'm going to take from that, and I guess this is how we could be running the session, is you've obviously got a really interesting and diverse background, because not only have you lived in different cities, but you also come from a family background that is quite unique. Whenever I discuss with students as to how to position themselves, I often start with, tell me a bit about your growing up years. Tell me a bit about your family, about your parents, about your childhood, because there's so many things and so many themes that come out from your childhood that it becomes really important and interesting for the admissions committee. You've got to realize that when you put in an application, all they're looking for is a true reflection of who you are and a good sense of how they can get that information by reviewing very quick couple of application essays and a resume, and maybe by a follow-up interview. So whenever you guys are thinking about application, my recommendation based on what I've just heard Shubhra say is think about your background. Obviously, Shubhra has a very unique and interesting background. There are many positives, and you build on your character as you keep working through your life and you keep progressing from your childhood to your schooling, to your undergrad, to your job. And at each point, there are things that you're learning in life that get presented to yourself just by the very nature of the opportunities that life has presented itself. So if you are smart, what you would do is you would look at all those opportunities and you would say, okay, right, this is what I've got so far, and I want to build on that through my MBA. So after my MBA, my strengths are really, really strong and my weaknesses can be addressed. So that's a really good segue into this. So Shubhra, what made you decide that you suddenly wanted an MBA? Obviously, you're very successful at what you do. You're doing significant sales work. You're managing strong profit and loss budget numbers. You've got a big team of people. You're meeting clients. Why MBA?
See, essentially, there are 2 parts to it. One is I have been into sales and distribution for nearly 7 years, and I wanted to get into the other side of the table, basically into strategy, branding, or marketing side of things. And whatever roles I was getting in India, it's always like you be the VP sales or NSM sales, and that is something that I no longer look forward to. I want to be in the strategy or the branding side of things. So that was one. Second thing, very importantly, I'll be honest about this, that I was vacationing in the US for a month in 2018. In August, I was there. So, and I really love the city. I love the country. I traveled across, East Coast, West Coast, and me and my family, we were there, my mother and my wife. So we love the country, and it's since then, I had this burning desire of, traveling there, working in US and settling down there. So these 2 things primarily have been the forces behind my decision.
Great. So again, what I think I'm hearing from here is, you suddenly got to experience the US lifestyle. You got to experience what staying and living could look like, and that's something that not a lot of us have the opportunity in. Obviously, once you do that, that's something that a lot of people go, oh, that's brilliant. I want to experience that, and I want to actually live here and work here. So I am earning in US dollars to be able to afford a lifestyle of that nature. Generally speaking, whenever, for all of us who've gone ahead and done an MBA and pursued a career after an MBA, it's always been an event, right? Something has happened in our life that has taken us on this journey. So whether that is an event like Shubhro mentioned, where he was there on a tourism basis, and then he really liked living in the US, or he liked the lifestyle, or it could be that you're really struggling with your work and you're not really sure which way you want to go and what comes up next. Or it could be like some of you might be experiencing, that you've got a bachelor's in management degree, but that there aren't enough jobs. So when that event happens, and when you realize that, okay, now is the time for me to go ahead and do an MBA, it's a really pivotal and important moment. And I would strongly recommend that when that event happens, you got to realize and remember what the trigger point was. One of the biggest decision points in your application essays is going to be why are you doing an MBA and why now? In order to answer that truthfully, at least to yourself, in the first instance, you would need to know why you're doing an MBA, right? And for you to know why you're doing an MBA, determining what the trigger event was is very important. So on this journey, Shubhra, so now that you've decided that, okay, I want to do an MBA, you've lived abroad, you've really enjoyed that, you need to take the GMAT. So tell us a bit about, because there's a few of us out here who are looking to take the GMAT for the first time. Some of you might have already have taken the GMAT, but what's your experience like? What was your preparation like? How many hours did you study? What are some of the tips that you can provide someone? What materials did you use? Anything that you can share?
So I think when it comes to GMAT, it has to be very well planned. Like in my second attempt, I got a 720. So in my first attempt, there were many mistakes that I had made. Like I started preparing for GMAT in April of 2019. So I concentrated on maths because we are strong in maths, so we try to focus there. And after a month and a half, I got in touch with Sujoyda. So again, I started practicing with him. But unfortunately, I had a in GMAT in my earlier also I had a 49 in quants. So, like I've not gone below that, courtesy Sujoyda's help and guidance. But English was a major problem for me. So I did not practice well during my first attempt for the verbal part. So that was a mistake. And then when I was giving it for the second time, I ensured that I was giving it plenty of time to work, because I gave my first GMAT in August of 2019. But then I had to. I think it was June. Yeah, June of 2019. And then I was getting transferred to. I was in Calcutta then, but then I got transferred to Gurgaon, and then I lost a bit of focus. I was not sure whether I should be doing this or not. I was promoted recently and everything happened. So again, I think it was post October that I decided when I've decided to giving a GMAT, I must get a good score. So again, I started preparing in October with huge focus on English. And finally, I gave the GMAT on 6th of January this year. And I got a 720.
So what was your score in the first time?
It was 650.
Right. So just for the benefit of, sorry, you were saying something?
No, please.
Yeah, so just for the benefit for everyone, 650 is actually quite a decent score. And given Shubhro's background, he's got a really solid background. It's not like an Indian IT male, which is the overly represented group of people that apply to US schools. Shubhro's background was really solid. So he could have actually just stuck around with the 650 and gone out and applied for a few schools. And I'm pretty sure he would have got admissions from quite a few of those schools. Now, what is really commendable here is he realized that, I've got a 650, but it's not enough. So that's why he took the test again. And
I would just want to point out one thing is that I had friends, who were into US schools like Cornell and all. So the primary theme was that you have to get a minimum of 710, 720 to get into the top 10, top 15 schools in the US. So, correct. And I did not want to take a chance. It was basically like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it from one of the better schools. So yeah, that was the main thing, that 720 is a minimum that one has to, at least aim for to
Correct.
get
So
into
it's a really, yeah, absolutely. It's a really important point because Shubhra, as you've mentioned, GMAT is a really, really important part of your application. And if you get a really good GMAT score, then it helps through the rest of your application to a point which you cannot even imagine. If you do not have a GMAT score, no matter how well you write your application essays, it's always going to be hard. But what I wanted to flag over here is the determination that Shubhra had. So obviously he was really focused on what he wanted to do, where he wanted to get. And in spite of getting a decent GMAT score, he realized that that's not going to be good enough. And therefore he started his preparation for the second test. Now, I know we've already covered your GMAT second score, but in terms of your preparation, apart from focusing more on the verbal part, how else was it different? Like, did you look at your weaknesses? Did you look at the time? Did you spend the same amount of time, more time or less time?
So time became a major factor for preparation because, having a senior role in my company, I did not get much of a time, through the day. So I used to come back from office at 7, and from 8 to 10 or 11 every day I used to study. The weekends it was usually that, when the time that we spent during our IIT and West Bengal joint days, I used to slog a lot. So yes, so Saturday, Sundays were gone. Basically I was studying maths problems and quants and, verbal. So effectively whatever time I had during October till January, I spent on GMAT. So it was essentially,
No, go on.
Yeah, so it was essentially English because my maths was pretty solid. I realized that, whatever Sujata had taught me, it was good enough for me to do it. So maths, I used to be in touch, but it was majorly English that I was working on. I never had a problem with the timing side of things because I was always very quick with my solutions. So it was essentially English and, getting them correct. So, yeah.
That's really good. And we just had a quick question from, I'm going to see, I think it's Shivani. So Shivani had a quick question about what materials did you use for your preparation?
For materials, it was essentially things that Sujata had provided when I was with him in Calcutta. And, some online courses that were available. But it was essentially Sujata's guidance. I'll be very honest here. Right. Whatever he told me to follow, I did that. Yeah.
Perfect. So, Shivani, to your point, basically what we have come up with is we've come up with a course which we haven't yet. We're still finalizing. We're in the last stages. So we're going to come out with that course very soon. It's essentially what we're calling a 100-question course. So our belief, and we've been dealing with GMAT students for so many years, fundamentally, the structure of GMAT exam has not changed. It is still the same. The focus is still the same. If you have done well on GMAT 5 years back, you're going to do well on GMAT right now. So that has been the intent that the GMAT, which is the administration committee that administers the GMAT test. So what we've done is we've compiled 100 questions, and through our classes, we will be presenting how to approach those 100 questions. And it's our strong belief that if you can do 100 questions properly and thoroughly, then that's all you need to prepare. You can prepare the other questions for your practice, but you've got to be very careful because there is a difference between just practicing and practicing for questions which are significantly not like GMAT. So I'm sure you know that there is a standard format for GMAT questions. The only sort of good place where you'll get solid GMAT questions are the official guide. If you have a look at the official guide, you'll see that there's a limit to how many questions there are. But if there's someone who understands every question in the official guide and how to do it, and more importantly, how to avoid the error trips and the barriers to getting it right for all types of questions, that's all you need to know. So we will be running a session similar to this where we'll be doing a workshop for an hour, and that will be in a couple of weeks from now, where we'll be doing a free session, 20-minute math, 20-minute verbal, and 20-minute just strategy and how the test works. And we will be presenting that. So if any of you are looking to practice GMAT or looking to think about considering GMAT, please do let us know. After this session, we will be sharing the detail with you very soon, and you'll see in that session how we apply strategies essentially to cover a small group of questions, but do it really detailed.
Yeah, Indradeep, I'll just add one point. Yeah, so like information regarding that course, we have our WhatsApp group also. So I'll be sending the details on the chat in the meeting. So you can just click on the link and join that group also. So you will get all the updated info regarding all the classes and future sessions that we'll be holding here as well.
Yeah, that's actually right. So please join our WhatsApp group, because we want to be quite strong in our WhatsApp presence and Facebook presence. Essentially, it is a group which is now being, like, we send out the invites to everyone who attends our session so that it becomes a live group. The ultimate goal of that group is to share questions where you can get access to all of us very, very quickly. So you send in your doubts or what have you, and then we'll respond to that. There's been another question that's come up, which is basically saying, is it necessary to appear for CAT and then appear for GMAT, or can we complete our college and then prepare for GMAT while we work? Which is more preferable? So I'll give you my view, and then Shujoy and Shubhra, you can add in. But my view is CAT and GMAT are fundamentally different tests. The premise and the questions that are being asked depend on very similar material, but what they are testing on the GMAT and what they're testing on CAT are two different things. So if you want to prepare solely for GMAT, then my suggestion would be, don't dilute the waters too much. Just keep your focus very, just keep your preparation very focused, and that will help you in getting through the GMAT exam. If you are thinking about doing an MBA in India and you're thinking about, well, should I take the CAT and the GMAT? The preparation becomes harder, but at the same time, it's not something that cannot be done. So that's my view. Shubhra and Shujay, do you want to add in?
I think it's like CAT, but from my understanding and from what I have experienced, CAT is essentially for doing an Indian MBA. And when I started out, I did not want to go outside the country because I had not experienced it till then. So this GMAT is basically for I think MBAs outside the country. So this is how I would advise.
I'll just add a couple of points here. So like you can use the GMAT for like colleges in India also, like, but those are for executive MBAs only. So that's like if you have already got a lot of experience, like for example, the IIMs have their executive MBA programs, which need a 5-year experience barrier sort of. And you also have an option for ISB. So ISB has a 2-year work experience limit. So they have their YLP program also. So if you think that, yes, though I want to do an MBA, which is 1-year duration. So typically now you have to understand why people do a 1-year MBA vis-a-vis like why people do a 2-year MBA, right? So if you don't have any work experience, and then you decide that I'll just do a 1-year MBA, then it's going to be very difficult for you to understand what the MBA is about, because you won't be able to relate anything that you learn in the class with practical thing that you have done before. So people with no experience at all, I'd suggest, if you want to, then 2-year MBA looks okay. So for that, if you want to stay within India only, then CAT is the only option. But you can also do 2-year MBAs abroad. So if abroad is the idea, like you want to go outside India and do an MBA, so do a 2-year MBA also, but do it from abroad. Then you go in for GMAT, not CAT.
So I think the question is that, so that's one part of the question, and then the other part is, should someone prepare, like, is it beneficial to prepare for CAT and then GMAT, or should you just focus on GMAT?
Yeah, so if you are like the preparation part is like, if you are thinking of sitting for CAT and GMAT both, so the comparison is something like this. CAT has a full section on logical reasoning and data interpretation. The GMAT does have something like that. It's called IR, but it's like 10 times easier than what comes in the MBA CAT exam. So if you're preparing for GMAT, the preparation is easier. That's the first point. You have to be careful and stuff, but you don't have to learn a lot of stuff. So that way it's easier for you to like navigate your way through your like college studies, or you are working and at the same time preparing. It becomes slightly easier with GMAT. That's one thing. Yeah, and if you are thinking like preparing for CAT and GMAT, another difference is the English part. The verbal ability in CAT is easier, and the GMAT verbal ability is way tougher. So if you have like sort of decided, no, I want to appear for both tests, then I would suggest then prepare verbal ability for GMAT and prepare the quantitative ability for CAT. So that takes care of both in a way. And the LRDI section has to be done anyways.
Yeah, yeah. So that's really a good point. Basically, the two exams are meant to test two different things among different groups of people. So you have to be careful what you select. Our overall recommendation is if first select what pathway you want and then look at what test you can give. If
Right.
the answer is GMAT, then preparing for tough questions on the CAT, because on CAT, it's also very important that your timing is right, because there are many questions. On the GMAT, the time management, as Shubhra also mentioned, is not that big a critical deal. So you know, the way you prepare, the strategies that you apply are different, but at the same time, what you should be realizing is it's not just about the preparation, right? It's also about the content and the concepts. So if you do CAT, you might learn a lot more concepts, which may never be
Never
tested on
come.
the
Yes,
GMAT.
exactly. Yeah.
So if you're happy with that kind of an approach, that look, I mean, I just want to know a lot more, then fine. But if you are short on time and you have just 2 months to prepare or 3 months to prepare, then just go for GMAT.
Correct. Yeah.
Does that answer your question? I think that was from Saurabh. Okay, so we've got another question here, which says, you know, most top colleges have round one deadline around mid-September or October. So can you discuss what timeline we should follow? When should we give GMAT? How long does it take? And referral and application essays. What's the difference between round one and round two application? And then there's a group link. So Redmi has asked a group link. I don't know, Shujoy, whether that's about our WhatsApp group.
Yeah, I'll be sending it soon. I'll be sending it in the chat. Yeah.
Yep. So Redmi said yes. So if you could just send that around after this session, that'll be great. Just to answer very quickly about round one, because we've got a few other questions for Saurabh. So maybe what we do is we just go through these points very quickly, and then if there's anything else that's left, we can cover back. So that's correct. So your round one deadline is around September, October. More common to have like October, November, and then December is round two, then January is round three, and some colleges have round four in April or May. Essentially, what you have to do is the earlier you get into the application process, the better, because fewer seats have been filled in. But at the same time, you should only apply when your application is the strongest. So this is the reason why you often need someone to sit down with you who've done this a lot to explain and work through what the best way is for you to approach this. Generally speaking, GMAT, you are looking at spending anywhere between 3 to 4 months. The application process, and then after your GMAT, it takes about a couple of weeks to know which schools you should be applying to. And after that, an application process overall takes about 2 months, starting from determining your profile, looking at your strengths and weakness, working out questions, and so on and so forth. So hopefully that gives you a very brief but succinct explanation between timing and round one, round two. We will be, once we finish off with Shubhra, we will be coming back, and hopefully if at that point you have any questions, please do ask me and we'll address that. There's another question that's come up, that what do you recommend students should do while studying in college so it's beneficial for MBA application? Should we do an internship or learn stock market or do something productive? Absolutely. Whatever you do during your college time will come in effective, but you pick up something that you're truly passionate with, because all of this takes time. I know a lot of students who go and do volunteering work just for the sake of it. I mean, this is a very common thing. People work out and very soon they understand that, you know, you're just doing it to make it look good on your resume because you've never done this before. And this is something totally left field for you. So my recommendation is, depending on where you want to go. So if you want to go in sales and marketing, then even at work, you can slowly start asking your manager, how can you move more towards a little bit of business development? So, or maybe start shadowing your business development person just to get a bit more insight on that. You don't really need to do anything. Anything that you have that gives you a big tick is great. But if you look at an entire application process, in my view, if you break down the 100%, it's almost like 40% to 50% is your GMAT score. Another 20-30% is sort of your background of what you've done, your undergrad scores, the college that you've attended, your undergrad, number of years of experience, the company that you worked for, all those sort of quantitative measures. They're about 60 to 70%. The remaining 30% comes down to your essays, your resumes, and how you present yourself. So clarity of goal, what do you want to do? Is it an achievable goal? Like we've spoken about this in previous sessions. Is this something that you can actually achieve? Is this something that the school is well known for? What's the vision and mission of the school? And we'll be covering that very quickly. So I just want to make sure that I give Shubhra enough time to talk about this. And then the same person asked, there are events held in a college which provide certificates that say that it's important. Does this certificate really matter? It depends on the certificate. Certificates in general don't matter. What matters is what have you done? What have you learned? How can you use that in the future? And how is that going to benefit the school that you're going to and the job that you're interested in attending after this? So let me just move on, and then I'll come back to this, to the questions again. So just give me a bit of time, because I think Shubhra's got some really interesting things to talk about. Right, so Shubhra, getting back to you. So now that you've got a fantastic score, right? You've got a 720. That is definitely going to set you apart. Now you know that, okay, I've ticked my GMAT box. I've got a really unique background. I've done a lot of business kind of work. I've led team. I've got leadership. How did you then select your school? What was the basis for you to select your schools?
The first criteria was I was looking for only 1-year programs. So essentially, then I decided on the place I want to do it. So it was basically either European schools like, UK was there and US was there. So all those colleges which were, offering a 1-year course is what I, because I had an MBA, I had an experience, and I did not want to spend so much of money on 2-year courses because these MBA is extremely expensive. Yeah.
I mean, as a matter of fact, Shubhra, just for the benefit of everyone, so Shubhra already had an MBA, and he had, how many years experience did you have after your MBA?
7.
7 years of experience, right? So he is as experienced and as talented as they could be as a prospective MBA candidate. So for him, if he were to actually go and apply in 2-year schools rather than 1-year schools, chances are quite a few of them would actually be rejecting him because they would think he doesn't have a clarity of thinking and he doesn't know what he wants to do after an MBA. So a 1-year school, as Shujoy said before, is well suited for people of 2 categories. One, you have been doing significant amount of business related work. So not engineering work, not finance work, more on the business end, right? So the revenue side, strategy side, planning side, general management side. If you've done quite a few years of experience on that, or if you've already got a prior MBA, or if you know what you really want to do, and that's it. Like you want to do an MBA so you can come back and work in your dad's business, or you're working for a company like McKinsey, and McKinsey wants you to go and do an MBA so you can get a promotion. Those kind of scenarios where you absolutely know what you want to do, or you've got a prior significant experience on the business side, not the technology or the technical side, or you are really holder of a previous MBA. If you have any one of those 3, it's very common for you to go to a 1-year course. I think by the sounds of it, most of you are not there, so you would still be considering a 2-year MBA. But Shubhra, the other really interesting thing you mentioned was we have not, so you've said 3 or 4 things that you use to select your college, right? You've said location, you've said 1-year program, you've said don't want to waste my time, don't want to waste money, but we haven't spoken about rankings yet. How important are Financial Times rankings? Because that's the only ranking.
Yes, absolutely. Financial Times is the only ranking, and the ranking is important. I already had an MBA from FDI, which is I think in the top 10 colleges in the country. So if I wanted to go out, I wanted to, do it from a very good college, and it helps boost the CV also, and you feel good. And
Correct.
having a good GMAT score, that ensures that you can at least, aim for the stars. So definitely, I was targeting, top 10, top 15 colleges in the US. So yes, and also in Europe. So I've got 3 calls from, one is from Cornell, USC, and SR. So yes, I was targeting the top 10, top 15 colleges, either Europe or US. Yeah.
Right. So rankings obviously played an important part, but it wasn't necessarily the first thing you looked at, right?
No, not the first thing. First thing was
So that,
location and the 1-year course. Yep.
Really, really good point. So for all of you who have attended our sessions previously, you'll see that these are exactly things that I've spoken about. I have said that figure out which location you want to stay in. Figure out what you want to do after an MBA. Don't worry about the rankings and the initial thinking stage. Once you've got that information, then overlay that with the ranking. That's exactly what Shubhra is saying right now. A lot of people, what the mistake they do is they go straight to the rankings and they say, okay, I want to get into the top 10 without realizing whether that's actually going to do them benefit. Like top 10 school is great to have in your resume, right? And it will always give you value. But at the same time, you're going into an ultra competitive environment where maybe you would struggle, particularly if you've never worked in an ultra competitive work environment. So people, from an Indian context, I'm talking about working in companies like Google, Intel, Samsung, and in their really competitive sort of high-end engineering work. Or you worked in a consulting firm in India like a Deloitte or a PwC, actually on their consulting or advisory arm. Or so things like, you worked on social causes, or you worked as an entrepreneur, or you worked helping out your dad's business. Really difficult to get into the top 10, not because your profile is not stellar, but because you've never really done that you've never really dealt with that kind of competition, and the schools are really nervous. Now, it's not to say that people don't get in there. Obviously, if you've got a great GMAT score and you've got a good story to sell, then you will get in. But I'm just flagging that there's so many things that you've got to bear in mind, which is why, to the question that was raised earlier, when should you start? Right now. If you think about how much you need to know, and if there's like 100% that you need to know and you know about 20%, then I think you need to put in 6 months. If you need to know 100%, if you know less than 20% of what the GMAT is, what an MBA is, what do you get out of this, start right now. It doesn't hurt. Apply whenever you're ready, but get your mind to start thinking about these things. All right. So with that, Shubhra, obviously you've mentioned the schools that you've selected. And you had an admit from 3 schools, which is fantastic. So you've got an admit from Cornell, you've got an admit from USC, which for the benefit of others, it's University of California, and ESADE. Where is ESADE? And that's not in England. So how did you end up with that?
ESADE is in Barcelona. I had a school friend, I was looking at colleges and all. So I connected with a school friend who is currently doing his MBA from ESADE. So yes, again, ESADE, I think in the world rankings, it's in the top 25 or 30 schools. And the European, I think it's the top 10 or top 15 schools. So, and Barcelona, the city, for any football fanatic, it's a great city to be in. So yes.
It's funny you say that, because for me, obviously growing up in Calcutta, and it's funny because all 3 of us have spent quite a bit of time in Calcutta. But growing up in Calcutta, it was cricket or soccer. And for me, Australia being where I decided to come and stay, the reason for that was cricket. Well, apart from other reasons, just like Shubhra mentioned. So you see, there's no logic in a lot of these decisions that we take. But, as long as you enjoy yourself, and this is where it keeps coming back to, that it's not just about ranking. It's not just about, whether a school is good for operations or a school is good for strategy. Every school is good for something or the other. But it's not important for you to get there. Sometimes you might just apply your common sense. Sometimes you just might apply your emotions while you're looking at this. As long as it's not just an emotional decision, there's logic behind it, but you can, in order to break the tiebreaker, you can absolutely use your emotion. All right, we're kind of nearing the end of this. Shubhra, do you have any tips or hints about your application process? Like what should people be looking for? Like how should they answer questions like why this school and what's your career goal? Any tips that you have that you can share?
Yes, I think I'll take a couple of minutes more, because I made a lot of mistakes during my journey. First is like you rightly said. I think if somebody wants to do a GMAT, wants to give an GMAT test, they should start as soon as that hits their head. If you have decided कि हाँ GMAT देना है, तो you should start it right today itself. First. Second is the whole process. Starting from the exam till you get a admit in a college. It's an arduous journey where not only the GMAT scores, but your resume, your cover letters, your LinkedIn profile, everything gets checked. And there you need somebody to guide you, somebody to help you out. Then I would say when you are deciding on colleges, especially when you're writing the essays, it's very important that you can pick some names of the current batches in those colleges. Go to LinkedIn, connect with some of the previous students, talk to them, and when you're writing the essays, you will find you can write, yes, I connected with so and so batch this, and he told me that your college is good in this, so that's attracted me towards it. Like it happened at Assad, at Cornell, because I have some of my friends at Cornell. So I utilize that. Because I had a chat with them, I utilize that. Next, something very important is that I think somebody had asked about voluntary work and all. So Cornell and Sade, they were very, very, very particular on the voluntary work that I had done. Like during my work with Agrotech Foods and Dabur, I was associated with an NGO. So, they asked me how the food was given and where did they store the food and everything. It's very important that some of my friends used to do is like, just to get a certificate, they do something, but they have not actually done that work. So it's very important that if you have not done that work, don't mention it, because if you mention it, some people may grill you, because most of my Cornell and SR interview went on explaining them what I actually did during my voluntary work. So it's very important that you're honest to yourself during your preparations, because as it happens, most of us IT guys, engineering students, we tend to focus on the maths and we leave out English. So it's very important that you understand what your weaknesses are and you work on them. Secondly, start as soon as possible. Thirdly, you need guidance. You can't do this thing alone, because GMAT is not CAT. Because I had given CAT and I had given ITJ without any tuitions, but I really needed Sujata to get through GMAT. So I would say you need somebody to hold your hand, especially people who have already done it. So it's very important that you get a guidance. So yeah, and be truthful to yourself during your applications and your interviews. Very important.
Words of wisdom. So everyone who's listening, these are words of wisdom. I mean, we keep talking about this, but now you're listening straight from the horse's mouth, someone who's been there, someone who's going to attend one of the top 20 schools in the world, and someone obviously who has a fantastic career ahead of them. So, I would strongly encourage all of you to listen to what he said. I mean, just to repeat, he said that be true to yourself, don't lie. So to a lot of these questions that are coming up, should I put something on my resume? Should I go and get a certificate? I mean, only do that if that's genuine. Because once you're blacklisted forever, and it's not a good thing to do. It's not going to benefit you. But if I could advise you about what you should be focusing on, particularly if you've got a couple of years to go, you should get started on preparing for your GMAT. The GMAT score is valid for a period of time. Prepare for GMAT, get that out of the way. So then you can focus on other things. And then you should be thinking about, if you're talking about extracurricular activities, actually pick an organization that you're passionate about so that you can go and do stuff. Don't just write things. Like if you want to play a sport properly. It is very common for people to think that US schools do not like people who have a one-dimensional life, that's just studying and working and getting good grades. It is like Indian education system is not like the US or Europe or even Australia for that matter, but they understand that. They don't expect you to be doing as much during your freshman year or doing something during your sophomore year. They don't expect you to be part of Alpha, Beta, Gamma, any of those. They don't expect you to do any of that. But they have been dealing with Indian students for the last 30, 40 years. They have a massive database. So they kind of know what is true, what is not. If I look at a resume and I see that, look, you've always worked in engineering and suddenly you've done this weird extracurricular activity, it's got no connection, I'm going to question you. So pick on something that you have been doing for quite some time, something that you enjoy doing, and focus on the qualitative aspect of that, not the quantitative. How many years you've done, not important. What is important is, what have you learned? What leadership skills have you got? How can you translate that into other aspects of your application? Right now, in the future, when you work, are you going to add value in the class? Are people going to like you? Or are you just going to come out like, like an arrogant person? That's fantastic. And then the last thing that Shubhra mentioned was also get some guidance. And again, I can't stress on that enough. Not only is the exam important, but as you can see, there's so many things that come up and so many questions that come up. You need to actually work with someone who can be sort of almost your coach and a mentor, like the way we work. And in another session, probably the one next week or the week after, we'll be having a person who's done an MBA and then worked in consulting in EY, and then gone into manage large-scale construction projects. So you can ask him about his career before an MBA. He's also a Bengali, by the way, and he's a close friend of mine. And then in a few sessions after that, I'll get an Israeli friend of mine to come in and talk to you guys about his MBA journey. He got an admit from Wharton. He decided not to take that out. He went and did an MBA with me at Australian Graduate School of Management in Australia. And then he went to Mackenzie, and he left that and he went to New York to start up his own business. So there's so many facets to this that most people have very little idea about. So please take expert advice, but work out who you want to work with. Like if you think you need someone who can give you practical examples and stuff that you can use for your application, then you look at that. If you look at someone, if you want someone who can, who's been doing this for a long time, and that's what's more important, then find that person. But whoever you work with, it's really important. Now, the last question that I had for Shubhra, and then we'll open it up for the attendees, is if you could go back in time, Shubhra, any advice you could give yourself? I mean, maybe just talk a bit about how you presented your why this school and your career goal. How did you present these two essays?
Sure. I'll just mention one thing that, if anything I could change, it would be that I would have taken, I applied in R3. And then also, R3, I did not have much of a time to work on my resume, my CV, my LinkedIn profile and all. So that was, a lot of it was very rushed. So but still, finally everything went well. So I have no complaints. But yes, I was lucky there.
But if you could apply in round one, would you do that? Would you prefer that?
Yes, absolutely. I think nothing like it. I think in R3, the competition is much more. The scholarships are not there. So I think R1, R2 is where you should be targeting. R3 is the last.
For the benefit of everyone, R1 and R2 is basically round one and round two.
Right. With regards to how I presented my, why MBA and why this school, I think it's very important that you go through the school websites, the mission and vision of a particular school and how you want to, weave your story. Because I work in with coats, so it's basically into apparel, and my story was that I wanted to get into the sustainable side of business. So schools where there is entrepreneurship is very high, where there are courses on sustainability, on energy and all those things. So this is where I put all those things in my essays. Like I want to do this. But this is my aim probably 5 years down the line, and this is how your school is going to help me reach there. So yes, this is how I put across all my stories. And I because I had some of my friends doing the same thing and they did not get the calls because they were not honest. It's very important that you don't use flowery words, don't use flowery things. It's very important that you call a spade and say, this is what I know and this is what it is. Because I think people in US especially, they appreciate a lot of simplicity. They don't like jargons. Even if you put in a word that they'll say, please explain it to me. And so it's very important that it's very simple. Everything is bulleted, and everything is quantified. Like, for example, if I can just put, if I say I grew by 19%, they say, so what? You have to say, I grew by 19% when others were growing by 5%. So then they would understand the kind of work you do. So it's very important that, all these steps are taken.
So essentially what you're saying, Shubhro, is contextualize it. And this is really important because in India, as Indians, we are used to following a format. And in that format, it's more about the end result or what we've done. But in the MBA applications, it's a lot about you realizing what have you done, what have others done, how is yours comparing with others. But more importantly, what have you learned from there? What are you going to take forward? So, my advice is very similar to what Shubhro is saying. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of introspection and retrospection and making sure that you put your best foot forward. A lot of planning, a lot of execution. Now, there have been quite a few questions that we've answered through this session. We've got a couple of minutes left. So before we close, is there anyone who wants to ask Shubhro any question? If you do want to ask any questions later on, please do so in the WhatsApp group or get in touch with either Shubhro or myself.
Hello.
Hi, Shreyam.
Hi. Yeah, this is. I have a question for Shubhro. I've heard him mention that he already has done an MBA from MDI Gurgaon, which is obviously a great institute. So, my question to him is it there are rumors where I've heard that it's frowned upon when you have already done an MBA and then you're pursuing an MBA abroad. So, that's not taken. It's not taken very good. So, is it actually true, or it's just a rumor that's been going around?
There are some colleges who allow this kind of a thing. But see, again, MDI was a diploma. It's a PGDM, postgraduate diploma in management. First difference is that. Second is there are colleges who don't, allow second MBAs. But for them, like there's a Duke Fuqua. They don't allow second MBA, second time MBAs for their 2-year courses. But for 1-year course that they have, the accelerated course, they prefer people who already have an MBA or, they've already studied some of the important courses like accounting, management. So, it depends. I think before applying to any college, you should at least get in touch with the admissions committee like I had done, or get in touch with their previous students because they help you out a lot. But again, the myth is, it's seriously a myth only. So you can definitely go for a second MBA. So that is not a problem.
All right. Thank you.
I agree. Now, there's been another question very quickly about, do they ask for previous GMAT scores? So essentially, if you have multiple GMATs, which one do they take? Well, they'll take your highest score, but your highest score has to be all scores together. So they'll not pick the highest quant score from something and the highest verbal score from something.
Yeah, here I would just want to say something that if you have a score, if you've done a previous score and you have improved upon that score, it is taken in a very positive manner that you put that in your GMAT scorecard because they can see that you have put in an effort. Because it happened with a friend of mine, they did not mention the previous score, and that was frowned upon. So it's better that if you have a lower score and you have improved upon it, it's good that you put it, in front of the recruiter. So that helps to understand that yes, you have tried and you have improved. That is what they are probably trying to see. So I think it's better. It's better to show all the scores.
Yeah, because it's also about them understanding that you're really serious about this, that you've put in more effort. Any other questions? All right. So if there's no other questions, thank you everyone for joining today. Hope that was useful. As I said, our sessions are just going to keep coming your way. Please follow us on the WhatsApp group so that we can understand, and keep you updated. We will be discussing various aspects of your application, what you should do and shouldn't do. As I mentioned, there'll be quite a few different guest speakers, as well as us coming in and providing you some basic insights. We will be uploading the video of this session, and we'll be sharing further information. As I said, our 100-question GMAT classes are just around the corner. So in a couple of weeks, we will be launching it. We're in the final stages of deciding that. And we're also preparing a GMAT test. So we are preparing online adaptive GMAT tests, which will also come out by the end of June. So hope that was useful. Thank you so much for attending. If there's no other question, we'll just sign off now and we'll speak to you guys soon. See ya. Bye.